Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Project Thrive October webinar. We are doing it to celebrate National Coming Out Day. The title is Breaking Down the Closet Door. We're going to be talking about coming out stories. We're going to be sharing tips and tricks for families and professionals to create affirming environments so that, youth will feel like they want to come out and share their stories. Always a beautiful process to see people kind of become one with themselves, and really excited to share the space with y'all. Thank you. We're going to start the webinar in about 2 minutes. I'm going to kind of get a critical mass. I see a few people are still kind of joining. And I also want to wish everyone a happy Halloween. October is my favorite month, so I might seem a bit more giddier than usual. I am celebrating in the joy of the season. Okay, we're going to be starting in about a minute, everyone. I'm going to let everyone kind of join. Seem like we're having a few more stragglers join, so I'll give them a few seconds to kind of hop in. Okay. And once again, welcome to our Project Thrive October webinar. We are celebrating National Coming Out Day and doing our webinar on coming out stories and tips and tricks to navigate that space and create affirming environments for youth to want to share their journey. Okay, we're going to be starting in a few seconds. Seems like we're kind of leveling out on attendees. All right. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass it to our moderator and panelists. Hello. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ralph Jones. I use any pronouns as I try not to gender language. So he, she, they, all are acceptable. I serve as a Youth Wellbeing Program Manager. For anyone who may need it, please click the closed caption button for auto captioning. Before we get started, I'm going to share some information about Project Thrive for those who are unfamiliar with the campaign. Project Thrive is a multi-year national campaign to create more equitable and inclusive support systems and communities for LGBTQ+ youth. We're a collaborative effort of 32 national organizations, each committed to identifying opportunities within their own sphere of influence, increase awareness about, provide resources to address the unmet needs of LGBTQ+ youth, and to highlight best practices and success stories from their respective professional fields. This monthly webinar series, sponsored by the National Education Association, is a free opportunity for all youth and professionals to learn from leading experts around the country. Please note the webinar is being recorded and can be reviewed on our website on demand for free. And please make sure to put your questions in a Q&A at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists now. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator. Our moderator will be Naya, who uses she, her pronouns. Naya is Mental Health America's Director of Community Engagement. By amplifying the perspectives of those with lived experience and intertwining the equity-focused strategies, Naya grows Mental Health America's ecosystem and promotes Mental Health America's resources. Naya is a licensed professional counselor in the state of Virginia and holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Hampton University and a Master of Education in Mental Health Counseling from the College of William & Mary. Naya's passion for mental wellness initiatives, particularly for historically disenfranchised communities, is driven by her experience in the mental health field and her desire for collective healing across the nation. For our families, we will have Christina and Maya, and we will also have Ray and Siobhan. Now I'll go ahead and pass it to Naya so we can get started. And I also want to graciously thank Mental Health America for collaborating with us and co-sponsoring the webinar. Thank you so much, Naya.
Hello, everyone, and happy National Coming Out Day. I'm so honored and thrilled to share space with our panelists today, and also grateful to Project Thrive for allowing Mental Health America to share your platform today. I'm here with the panelists, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit more before starting the call. We're going to share a little bit about the stories, their success stories, and some of the unique ways that they've navigated coming out, and hopefully inspire each of you to learn how to navigate it in ways that are affirming, safe, and welcoming to those of you watching this panel and those in your community. So if each of you could just share a little bit about what coming out means to you, I think that's a great place to start our conversation. It's such a unique and personal journey that individuals who are navigating this space tend to go through, and we're just excited to learn more about your own unique definition of that word.
I can answer first. So, coming out to me means more so accepting yourself than having others accept you. Other people's acceptance is very important, but for me, it meant accepting myself and knowing that I was okay. Like it was okay to be LGBTQ. Like it was perfectly fine, and no matter what anyone else says, I still accepted myself.
Think coming out for me meant like what Maya said. I think it meant more than like accepting just who I was, going a step further than that. It meant like embracing and fully owning my identity as part of myself, being able to say this is me and not being willing to apologize for that.
Parents, do you all have anything to add?
Sure. So I kind of look at it in two different ways because I myself have my own coming out story, being queer, but also have experienced coming out through Maya's coming out as well. And I definitely want to, I don't want to downplay the importance of being publicly free, right? But there is such there's so much importance in being personally free, right? To say to yourself and to live in a way that honors who you truly are. And that for me is really what is important in both as a parent of a queer youth, but also as someone who's queer themselves. It's really important for me to just hold space for who I am as a person and to be free to fall or flourish or whatever that entails as my whole self.
I think I'm inclined to agree with what everybody else said. And, as somebody who's also a member of the queer community, I think that to me, coming out means being able to live authentically and to be able to be myself in whatever space I'm in. And that may look different in different places, but it's important for me that I can be myself when I need to be myself.
Beautifully said, everyone. I love the themes that are popping up around being personally free and self-accepting and authentic. I think oftentimes in society, it can feel so constricting everywhere we go in school systems and workplaces, and all of these environments can sort of feel like they rob us of our individuality or our ability to accept ourselves. And so at least having one safe space that you can count on in your own mind and in your own being is so, so important. I'm curious for those of you here, was coming out an individual occurrence? Was it like a one-time thing? Has it been a process throughout your lifetime? What was your personal experience with the duration of coming out?
So for me personally, I think it's an everyday, every person type of experience. And there's some people who I'm not going to tell everything about me. Not everybody needs my full life history, but anytime that you go and you walk down the street holding your partner's hand, that can be coming out. There's so many different ways that we come out. Whether or not they're verbal, whether they're physical, whether they're just us not being afraid to talk about your girlfriend or your wife at the doctor's office. I do think that every time we meet somebody else, we kind of have to go through that coming out process again.
I'm inclined to agree. So I don't formally come out every time I see someone. Like I only formally came out to my parents really, but I do freely talk about my girlfriend or freely talk about my pronouns. I always introduce my pronouns when I'm going to talk to someone that I'm probably going to see again at least. Like I don't say my pronouns to a shop owner, but if I'm going to a new club or something like that, I do say my pronouns. But formally, like if we're just talking about formally coming out, I think for me at least, it was only like technically it was only like a 2-time thing. But otherwise, I do come out regularly by just existing.
I'm Generation X, so seeing the change in how LGBTQ people are accepted has been very different from what my experience was back when I was in high school, class of 95. So, you know, it was a long time ago. I never formally came out. There was no formal, I never said to my mom, hey, I'm queer. I've never talked to my sister. Well, I talked to one sister about it, maybe, but it's never been a formal thing, in part because I never felt safe enough to do it. But also because I felt like I didn't owe anyone an explanation as to who I was. However, I find myself saying it more and speaking up more now because I understand the importance of being vocal, in much the same way that heterosexual people end up vocalizing their preference or their, you know, whatever. I should be doing that too. And so I do find myself saying it more. For safety reasons, it's not always in the best interest to share that information with people. But I try to, and a lot of it is just about through my actions, like everyone's saying, like when you just live and you love freely and you respect the energy that love, you know, exists regardless of gender and sexuality, you are in fact coming out.
I think for me, I really like the distinction that we're making here between like formally coming out to people and just existing in the way that you are and being visible. Because I think the experience I had, at least about like my transgender identity, was until this past year in school, I was not exactly like I I wasn't out or like speaking about being trans. I just was, and I was just existing. But then I kind of had to recognize that right now it's important for me to be visible, I guess. And I um, started speaking with my friends like in the hallways and loudly and speaking to the teachers, even if they didn't understand, and just being as visible as I could because I realized how important it was to like like Christina was saying, is just to exist.
I think it's so beautiful that each of you have so many similarities, but then also your own unique experiences with coming out based on timeline, age, even maybe geographic location and where you're located might impact what feels safe in terms of coming out or what doesn't feel safe in terms of coming out. And I love that the common thread there is just like Ray spoke to, visibility and focusing on the fact that existence in itself is something that we should be normalizing for all people. Just being able to show up authentically yourself in whatever space you're in is really important. I'm wondering if there were any factors like that that impacted your coming out journey. Christina, you spoke to it a little bit around timelines of being from Gen X. That was obviously a different experience for you. I'm wondering if any of the rest of you, based on like location, or maybe even age or person by person, if it got easier over time with certain groups of friends or different groups of teachers, colleagues, things like that, as you continue to navigate this process.
Well, I think like location plays a specific role and really the context in which that's happening, because like if I'm in rural Kentucky, it's not always exactly safe to be um, open. Um, can you add to that at all?
Yeah, so and I think that, you know, if we're in California or if we're someplace where it's very accepted to be gay, or even within our city itself, it's a very LGBT friendly city, even though we're in the middle of Kentucky. So it's a lot easier to be very openly gay here, openly trans here, speak out for what we believe. Ray's led a number of youth rallies and done a number of other things to help promote trans visibility and trans rights. And I think it's very easy to do that within our city, but when you start going into more rural areas, you want to be a little bit more careful. You want to be, you're not quite as loud. You might not wear the pin that, says, stand with us with the trans flag. You might just tone things down a little bit just so everything's not quite as overt, so you can help maintain your own physical and mental safety.
I think an element of that safety is I've gotten more comfortable coming out over time, I think, because I've built up this support network. Like, I have my family, I have a really good group of friends. I know that I have a safety net. And I think that makes it easier because I'm not wondering, like, I don't have to worry about, am I going to have a place to stay? And I'm really fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, we see a lot of his friends who are trans who have come out to one parent and maybe not the other one, just because they have the one accepting parent and the other one who would be very upset or abusive if they came out under that scenario. So there's a number of factors which are going to play a role.
Yeah, I am in the same boat as Ray, but I have a pretty good support system. Like, both my parents are very accepting, and I'm very fortunate to have that. My friends, most of, if not all my friends, are a part of the LGBTQ community in some way. So they are almost automatically safe, like my safe space. And so it is pretty easy for me to come out. Like, me coming out, I came out to my extended family, and honestly, it was like I didn't really even care about the outcome because I already had the safety net, and my parents were ready to come to bat for me. But on the flip side, even though I'm pretty like safe, I'm still very cautious because Arizona is a very strange place to live in. There's a huge number of LGBTQ people, but there's also a huge number of people who do not accept us. So you never really know who you're going to come across. And you can't really tell either, obviously. You can't really tell someone's morals based off how they look. So it's very, I'm very cautious, though I'm more likely to be a bit free if I'm in like the city because there's a lot of clear acceptance there.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I agree, like Maya hit the nail on the head that, when you're in a place where you're not really safe by default because of the political leanings or the religious leanings, you tend to hide a lot, or at least keep it from becoming part of your like physical identity. But there's also the intersection of being Black and a woman and neurodivergent, and all of these intersections that play into your safety. And you have to kind of, I know for myself, when I go out in public, if I'm treated poorly or someone responds to me in a negative way, I have to go through the list. Is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm fat? Is it because I'm a woman? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? And that in itself is exhausting. So you learn to downplay certain aspects of who you are in order to protect your wholeness. And that is exhausting. So, we're constantly playing a game of how much energy do I have to exist in this world and in this space at this point in time. And conversations like this are important because we start to see that as we move from area to area and from place to place, there are so many similarities because there's not like this, like we're playing it off. We're often forced to see this as a choice and not as, part of human existence, this vast, diverse, network of sexuality and gender and identity is part of who we are as humans. But when we say that it's a choice and we allow people to believe that it's a choice, it makes things very difficult for those of us who are considered vulnerable parts of the population.
Yes, I'm so grateful to each of you for sharing a little bit about the importance of safety and making sure that that's a priority, regardless of what you're navigating and regardless of how you're trying to share and create affirming space with your community. A foundation for that is having safety emotionally, physically, and all of the forms of safety are quite important here to consider. So thank you all for sharing that. I think something really important came up, which is when considering safety, there's also this concept that others tend to refer to, known as like inviting in or letting in, as opposed to coming out. And sometimes it's a matter of safety, and then sometimes it's a matter of that's my preference, and it's none of anybody's business what's going on in my personal life. One thing that's important to consider there is that we all develop attraction over a time span. We all develop sexuality over a time span. We all develop gender identity over a time span. Babies, infants don't know what gender they are ascribed at birth. And so it's important to realize that that's a process for everyone. And inviting in is one way that some individuals are able to create a sense of safety and also honor their own autonomy in that journey of development. Would each of you like to share a little bit about how you would define inviting in or letting in?
I'm happy to. For me, my way of inviting it in is really just having people get to know me. I don't make it a huge thing of coming out to people. I just will passively mention it. Like I will passively mention my partner or passively mention like I'm trans. So that's my way of inviting in. It's just you get to know me. I don't make it a big, like not a big deal. I don't like that. It is a big deal to me, but I don't make it a specific talk, if that makes sense. It's not, I don't sit people down and be like, okay, I'm trans. That I just mention it. And if they don't like it, then they don't like it. But I mention it as early as I can. So I can avoid the like awkward, oh, you're trans, I didn't know that, and that part. So it's just a matter of just making it as like I kind of talked about it the way cisgender and heterosexual people mention their identity.
I think like when I think of the difference between inviting in and coming out, I think I would define coming out as more like I'm taking this step and I'm walking towards you versus inviting in, saying you are like the other person taking that step towards you. And like I think when you're inviting in, you're secure where you are, you're secure in your identity, you know, like yourself, and then you're just like sharing that with somebody instead of like coming out of hiding because it's not something we should need to hide.
And I like the way that both, I think Maya and Ray said that. Maya said it very well, where when I come out, a lot of times I don't or invite people in. It's more I talk about my life in the same way that anybody else would talk about their life. And if I mention my girlfriend, then I mention my girlfriend. And it's the same way that I would mention a boyfriend or the same way I would mention anybody else. I don't usually, I let Ray tell his story. And I don't talk a lot about that because that's his place to talk about, unless he has really specifically asked me or told me that he wanted me to say that. But again, it's just trying to talk about my life the same way anybody else would talk about theirs.
I don't really have a lot to add. I just wanted to say that, Ray, I love the way you put the coming out versus inviting in and them coming in to your space and kind of taking the step towards you. I absolutely love that. I probably come out more than I invite in these days. But I'll be honest, it's because I don't have the energy or patience for people who aren't accepting from day one. And so I want you to know who I am from day one. And if you're okay with, if you accept me for who I am, then I invite you in. But if not, I don't even want to exert the energy, because it's just too much sometimes, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said, everyone. The next question is specifically for the younger folks on the panel. I'm wondering if there were specific spaces in your environment, whether that be teachers, parents, friends, different groups that you belong to, that did create safe space for you. And if there are particular pieces of advice or indicators that you all would like to make our audience aware of how to know that someone is a safe space for you to begin conversations with them about your orientation.
I think like the little things matter a lot, especially in school. Like like if the teacher says something small but positive and accepting, they like it feels like a safe place and a safe person, and it's so comforting to have that. Like, oh, this teacher is safe to talk to. Just for like maybe a flag or asking pronouns. Um, like on the first day of school, or asking if there's a name you'd prefer to be called.
Yeah, I agree with, especially with the name, like the preferred name thing. And also, so for me, my parents have always added, like, always exposed me to LGBTQ people. I remember when I was really young, like 5, I remember my mom talking to me about this couple, and it was a hetero couple, but but there was a trans guy, and if I remember correctly, his wife could not get pregnant, so he got pregnant. And I remember my mom explaining, oh yeah, men can get pregnant too. And that was that. Like, it wasn't anything. I was 5, so it was explained in very simple terms. And I remember that being one of the earliest times where I learned, oh, these people exist. Like, that's normal and okay. And and then when I came out, my parents were really willing to learn, because we all kind of learned about what being trans meant together, because I was still learning. I was only 12, so I was still actively learning, and about myself and just about the identity and the culture and all of that. And it created such a safe space that now I can just, if I find out something new about myself, I just bring it up randomly. I don't like I'm gender fluid, and I just mentioned it to my parents like very passively. I was like, oh yeah, I do this because I'm gender fluid. Like, it was really small. And then with like school and stuff, one of my teachers, he misgendered me and then apologized profusely and has not misgendered me again. I didn't even correct him. He just realized he misgendered me. And that was one of the things, that was such a small thing that really has stuck with me, because I've never met him before. I didn't come out to him. It was just, I saw my file at school, and he realized he misgendered me, and quickly he messaged me an apology, because I'm an online school, and has not misgendered me since. He's really good with it. And it's nice to know that so those people exist outside your family and friends. And then my friends were just very helpful. They just stuck with me as I figured myself out.
Wonderful. It sounds like both of you hit a really important topic, which is that there's intentionality behind safety, and folks are never going to be perfect 100% of the time on any front in our given lives. But being able to accept accountability and also corrective action is really important when it comes to creating affirming spaces for those that we care about. And I'm so glad that even in those tiny encounters, you all were able to experience safety in the school system as well. And the next question is for our older folks on the panel. I would like to know a little bit more about how you strive to create safety for your children. And same question that I posed to the younger folks on the panel. What piece of advice would you have for someone who's looking to create safety in their environment, or what are some signs that someone might be a safe person?
So this is, I have a lot to say, so I'll try and not take up too much time. I am a firm believer in parenting and showing up for youth in a way that reflects what you needed as a child and what you know you were missing. That's part of the healing process, right? Recognizing that our parents are flawed individuals who may have misstepped, but we can now correct this generational error, this generational trauma by showing up and showing out with love first. So I often say, be the parent you needed, be the friend you needed, be the support system you needed, even if you didn't realize you needed it. Right. And that tends to guide the way both my husband and I parent. Also, not being afraid to apologize when you make a mistake. And I know that's huge for parents. Like a lot of us grew up in generations with parents who did not apologize and who were never wrong. Right. But I tell Maya all the time that I may be right about a lot of things, but I am wrong too. And I apologize when I'm wrong. I recognize that even when my intentions are good, if the impact of what I'm doing hits in a harmful way, then I need to correct my action. I don't show up to explain my intentions. I need to address the harm that has been committed or, felt. So a lot of it is humbling yourself to know that, you don't know everything. I often tell Maya that Maya leads. Maya tells me what they need. Maya tells me how to show up for them as an accomplice in this fight. I cannot project my thoughts and my needs onto my child because that's not fair to them. As an educator, I try to make space for my students to feel comfortable, not through just my words, but through my actions, through knowing that, maybe this lesson is not going to be comfortable for them. So maybe I need to find a different topic or a different material. Just limiting the amount of harm that they have to endure within my classroom so that they can exist in a space and learn. It really is about these small actionable things and not about what you say, right?
That was beautiful, Christina.
Did I mute myself? I was like, was I muted?
Very well said. That's beautiful. So I think for me, the other part of it is that, one of the biggest things that I did for Ray when he first came out is it was something that I actually struggled with. I didn't think that I was going to. I didn't think that I was going to have any trouble processing one of my kids coming out as trans, just because I was so immersed in the community anyway, and have so much support for the trans people who I've known for years. But I also know how much harder life can be if you're trans, and I know how judgmental society can be against trans people. And so I was grieving not necessarily who Ray was. I knew that I would love him no matter what, but I was worried that his journey was going to be harder. But as part of making a safe space for him is I made sure that I didn't let him know that anytime that he said anything, I told him I was there for him. I did my grieving and my talking to myself, and my processing I tried to keep out of Ray's earshot. So all he knew was that I loved him, I supported him, and I would help him be whoever it was that he came out to be. And I think that it's really important, especially as parents, that we can make that distinction, and we can make sure that all of our actions to our child show them how much we love them unconditionally.
Can I just add, oh my goodness, yes, yes, Siobhan, like I I think I recently, probably in the last year, shared with Maya that it was hard for me when they came out as trans. And I went through a mourning process, and I talk about this because I think it's important for parents to understand that this is normal, to grieve the expectations that you put upon your child before you even knew who they were. It's okay to grieve that. It's okay to say, I'm sad, and to lose it and to let it go, but you can't let it control your actions. So yeah, I grieved. I struggled, and we talk about this often with the possibility of name changes and stuff. We've talked about this, but I've told Maya that no matter what grief I felt, no matter what, worries I had, I believe my child to be the best to make the decisions for themselves, to know themselves better than I did. I may have carried you, I may have birthed you, but I don't know you. You are not even a fully formed person yet. And I have to allow that separation in my expectations and who you are. And I have a very good friend who I call on whenever I have any questions. And she said to me one day, she has 2 adult children, and she said to me, remember, you have to parent the child you have and not parent the child you thought you have, or parent the child you expect to have. Parent the child you have. And it changed my world, because I realized that the grief that I was feeling had nothing to do with Maya. It had everything to do with my expectations.
Yes, I mean, that's so beautiful to listen to, the ways that you all sought to create safety for one another and also for yourselves as you navigated that process. It's so important. I think all of us could benefit from being able to decenter ourselves more often and really focus on the individual in front of us instead of being so wrapped up in our own thoughts and emotions as we're navigating all of these spaces with one another and our families and our workplaces and our schools. Being able to say, what does this human in front of me need and how can I show up for them is so important, especially when we talk about coming out. So this next question is for everybody as well. What sort of inspired or motivated you to come out? Was it a sudden decision, or was there a specific catalyst that really resonated and persuaded you to want to come out?
For me, funny enough, my persuasion to come out was mostly I just wanted to be free and able to talk about myself. So I came out like twice officially, and the first time was actually about my bisexuality. And I've just told mom, at the while creating something for my dad for Father's Day or something.
Yeah,
And it
we were
was
making a Father's Day
yeah,
card.
and it was
funny.
so like normal. I was just like mom, every time I was like, I like girls, and mom was like, me too. And then we just that's kind of it. And then me coming out as trans was, again, just so I had the freedom to grow and know myself more, because I wasn't sure if I was trans, but I wanted to be free, like have the freedom to talk about it. Like now I know, but at the time I was still questioning and I was unsure and scared, and like I just wanted to have I wanted to have more than just my one friend to talk to about it. So it wasn't even like it was more I wanted to come out for myself than anything. I knew my parents would love me even though it was scary still. I knew my parents would love me. So it was just more like I just want to get this off my chest so I can just move freely.
I I definitely agree. It's like I just want to be open about this and to like take action on it. I think um maybe not the catalyst for me coming out, but like the catalyst for my like me realizing that this is something like this was part of me I came across like the word non-binary, and I hadn't really heard that before. Like maybe I had, I don't know. But I really processed what it meant, and I realized, because I've always been like somewhat feminine, but I've always felt like a guy. And I didn't realize that there could be like I didn't have to fit into one box or another. And then that gave me, acknowledging that gave me the freedom to then further acknowledge and become more confident in my gender identity. And it has done like wonders for my mental health. Um, and I think that was really the real catalyst in my in my journey. But I think what prompted me to come out was realizing that I wanted to like be comfortable in my body. I wanted to be able to hear people use the right pronouns for me. I wanted to like acknowledge this part of myself and take action on it.
And I think that one thing that Ray brought up too, that I think is important for the parents in the audience to be aware of, is that a lot of times this is a continual journey. You know, Ray, when he first came out, he said, "Mom, I'm I think I'm a lesbian." Or
That's not what I said.
Okay, well then tell
I
me
said
what you said.
I came out as bi.
Came out as bi. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, he came out as bi. Thank you for correcting facts. But he came out as bi, and I'm like, okay, cool, you know, that's perfect. And then the next step was that he came out as non-binary. And he used they them pronouns for about a year. And after about a year into it, he's like, you know, I really feel a little bit more masculine. I think I'm actually trans-masc rather than non-binary. Okay, great, excellent. Yeah, keep being you. And I see this with so many of his friends where some of them will say, okay, I feel like I'm non-binary. Well, now I feel like I'm actually more feminine, or I feel like I'm more masculine. And it's not always a straight line journey. You don't always go from, you know, from Ray, you know, is went from non-binary to masculine, but some people go from non-binary and then they go back, and it's really a very individual journey. And the more that you're there as their parents and supporters to help them in that journey, the more comfortable they're going to be to make the decision themselves. We know a number of people who actually transitioned at one point, and then from peer pressure they ended up transitioning back, and then ended up transitioning again later in life. And it was a much harder journey their second time, but they were much more committed to it because they didn't have, they weren't going to listen to those peers because I knew that wasn't right for them. And so this is not a linear journey. You're not going to go, you know, directly from point A to point B. Just because they come out one way or another doesn't mean that they might not change their mind later. And it's our job as parents to be as supportive of them, no matter what decisions, no matter where they are, as possible.
You're
And
right.
oh, sorry, go ahead,
no,
Ray.
you go.
I
You go.
apologize.
I muted us again. So do you want to finish, Ray?
I can't remember exactly what, but I think that we're all entitled to that journey, and we're entitled to figure it out as we're going. Because I think one of her worries was like, what if he changes his mind? And so what? Like, if like the damage that would be done by that is so much more minimal compared to the damage done by not supporting me through the journey.
Ooh, Ray, you're just dropping truth bombs all over us. Just to piggyback off of that, you know, we hear a lot of these buzzwords in the media and from politicians. We hear about gender affirming care and we think hormones or surgery, but gender affirming care is literally allowing people the space to figure out who they are. That's what gender affirming care is. It's not about pushing hormones or pushing, you know, no one's pushing any of that. What we are saying is, please figure it out. Take the time. It's fine. You have the freedom. That's what gender affirming care is. That's what we should be striving to create in a society, that people are free to explore the outer limits of their personalities, as long as it's not harming anyone, right to their own personal freedom. We should be creating space for people to just explore and learn who they are. Humanity is vast, and we don't even know a lot of it. How else do we learn unless we explore?
I couldn't agree more. Because I'm a firm believer that even cis people, and they should be able to question themselves too, even if they end up being cis. I think it's healthy too, honestly. It's healthy to question your identity and try to figure yourself out, even if it's not as far as some trans people might feel, pure, full on dysphoria. I want to change my body. Even if it's not, even just I wonder if I like my pronouns. I think it's normal and healthy, and I I don't fully understand the fear that they oh, what if they end up being cis? It's not it's if it happens, it happens. It's not any of our business either. Our business honestly is just to listen and be supportive. Whether you're trans or cis. I've helped so many of my friends and such to throughout their journey, whether they're trans, they're gay, and sometimes they figure out, oh, maybe I'm actually not this. And cool. I just honestly, I just want them happy more than anything.
Wow. I don't know. That last round was really good for me. I think everybody was really coming with some great truths and inspiration for our audience. And I'm grateful to listen and learn to what all of you have shared. And I think that was just incredible. So I'm going to actually do hopefully 2 more questions, fingers crossed, and then we'll be able to get some Q&A from the audience. But just going a little bit further down on what we had planned, I'm wondering if there's any resources that you all would like to share with our attendees today that either helped you to navigate your personal journey or helped you to be able to support your child as you navigated coming out. I'll do a shameless plug for Mental Health America. We do have a Pride hub of resources in terms of gender affirming care, even being able to explore your gender identity in an affirming way for yourself. That is mhanational.org/pride. So feel free to check out those resources if you're interested in learning more. But do you all have any additional resources that you'd like to share?
I would love to plug 2 organizations in particular. One is local to the Arizona area, and it's called 1 in 10. And Maya was on the youth ambassador or the youth advisory council early on, before they're actually here at HRC because of that experience. But 1 in 10 was, for me, and I won't speak for Maya, but for me, a lifesaver. Not only did they provide amazing information and educational resources, but they also have a queer camp. So that's very safe. Everything they do is with the intention of keeping queer youth to 24 safe. And they've just been an amazing resource in the local area. And then online, and this leans more to neurodiversity, but also a lot of the people in the organization are also queer. It's called STEM Punks. It's a foundation created by neurodiverse and disabled populations to protect neurodiverse and disabled people. And they offer education and financial support when needed to creatives. And it's just been a really good source.
I think most of the resources that we've ended up using have been local. And so we found those through a variety of different ways. We have a great, transparent support community here who really helped. It's so important to be able to talk to the different parents about what they're going through. And it was a great way for the kids to get to know each other and meet each other and see that they're not the only ones going through this journey. They're going through it together. And so I think that you can look on Facebook, you can talk to your doctor's office if you have a Pride Center nearby. Those are all great ways to make local connections, which I think are going to be really, really useful additions to whatever national support system that you find.
And to add on it's just a more broader scale. Honestly, what helped me was just talking to other trans and queer people, and in online spaces mostly for me. And I know it's not an organization, but it helped me a lot with just knowing the personal experience. So, and also they were, a lot of them very willing to talk about their experiences, as long as you were respectful, obviously. But yeah, that's what helped me.
Fantastic. Thank you all for sharing those resources. For those of you who are attending live, it looks like we are able to list those in the chat with links. If you have more information that you would like to explore on your own time, you can feel free to follow those links. So I'll ask our final question to our panelists here in this formal setting. And then if our host would like to join us and ask a question, they're welcome to from the audience. But our final question is, what would you like to leave our attendees with today? Whether that's a piece of encouragement, a piece of advice, a tip. While we're here celebrating National Coming Out Day, what are your final words to share with our attendees today?
Love and trust yourself. You know yourself best, and also trust your gut. So you'll know when it's the right time to come out, whether it be you feel safe or you're just ready. Just love and trust yourself.
I want to say, fight for those who are vulnerable. Speak up when you can. Get rid of allyship. It's passive. Be an accomplice. Be active. Actively support those who need it. Don't hide on the backs of those who are speaking up. Speak up too. We need all the voices. Every voice matters, even if you're repeating what's already been said.
And as Christina said, I think it's a lot easier to stand up for somebody else than it is to stand up for yourself. And so as allies, as peers, as accomplices, as however you want to define yourself, when you hear somebody being bigoted or being hateful, speak up for those people who don't have the ability to speak up for themselves.
Because also, like, we're paying attention if you stand up for, like, if I see somebody stand up for LGBTQ people, like, I notice, and I like.
And there's a lot more people in the community than I think anybody has any idea of. Gender is a spectrum. Sexuality is a spectrum. There's so many people that don't fall neatly on one side or the other that may be afraid to say that. So anytime that you speak up, you catch their attention, whether you know that they exist or not. And this is Ray, so I'm kind of stealing his thing, but trans people have always existed. LGBT people have always existed. We will continue to exist, and be proud, be yourself, and make sure, be loud.
And can I add one more thing? Recognize that if you are not uncomfortable, question how you're showing up. Because showing up in activism and working to support those should be uncomfortable. You're breaking down the status quo and you're fighting against the norm. It can't be easy. It won't be.
I think one of the big things that I want people to take from this is to trust your kid and to give them like give them the space to explore their gender identity, because like I think as Christina said, like gender affirming care isn't just hormones or surgery, it's social, and it's just like using pronouns and like binding or whatever the person who's coming out it wants it to be, and let them guide that.
Wow. I mean, what an inspiration. I'm just grateful for what all of you have shared. I'm sure our audience members and attendees are incredibly grateful as well. I'm leaving even more inspired and educated than when I started the call, and I do this work. And so there's really power in that lived experience. And thank you all for sharing that. I think we have time for maybe one question, and Rob's going to bring that to us.
Of course, definitely. So the main question that we were asked was kind of just around safety. There were two questions specifically that tied to safety. Safety. One was just around safety tips for Black and Latinx transgender youth in navigating like urban areas, and then also just kind of how people can balance like safety and coming out. Like it is really hard to kind of navigate that balance between like I can come out, but am I safe? Like, is it a safe space? Like, is there a like clear balance that you can find like with you being a certain degree of out, but also like knowing the environment that you're in and knowing that you're safe in that environment?
I would say listen to your intuition. Um, you, intuition is our body's way of telling us something is wrong, right? If you don't feel safe in a space, leave. If you don't feel safe with a group of people, leave. But also try and be with other people who are supportive of you. It's a really, so much of us are dealing with loneliness in this day and age because of various reasons, right? We're starting to see that loneliness is a huge thing. Join that group, join the local LGBT group, look on Meetup. Meetup is a really good space, and I encourage you to vet, but join Meetup and look for LGBTQ groups that can offer support, because we are stronger in numbers, right? We're all stronger when we're working together. So you're not alone. If you feel alone, reach out, help. I know it, and it's easier said than done. And I know this. I have mental health issues. I get it. It's easier said than done, but try taking that step to find community. It's the only way to ensure safety.
Along those lines, I don't think that you can ever do anything to 100% guarantee that you're safe, but you can't cross the street and know that you're going to be safe either. Life is about risks, and it's about calculated risks. And try to balance what kind of harm you're doing, keeping it inside, with being able to freely speak out and be who you are. And I think that only you are going to know what that balance is going to be. Your child is the only one who knows what that balance is for your child. And so, but if you take calculated risks, if you have a good, strong, supportive community, all of those things will add together to help improve mental health, will help build your confidence in yourself, and will help you do it in as safe of a way as possible.
And to add on, specifically to the question that was about being Black or Latinx or Latinx rather, I'm Black, and one of the ways that just helped me feel a little safer, because a lot of the queer spaces I was in was predominantly white, was I honestly I sought out like Black specific areas, and it helped, but I also created them myself. Me and my friend run a Discord server, and we have a specific we pretty much we advertise to non-Americans and non-white queer people a lot, and we have a safe space for them. So unfortunately, sometimes you got to create it yourself, which can be a lot of work, but there's people like you out there, and you really just you have to search and just find it. And if you find one, go. Like, don't be like, am I gonna fit it? No, you will. Just go. And hey, even if you don't maybe stick with it, at least you know there's people like you out there. And I'm sure and I'm confident you will find someone in that group that you'll get along with, even if you don't go to the group.
If nobody else has anything else to add, before I continue on, we do have one question, but I will thank everyone for attending the webinar. Thank you so much to our panelists. If anyone needs to drop off, please feel free. I completely understand. Thank you to everyone who's attended. If you need to leave, thank you so much for attending. I feel like this webinar was very, very impactful, and it's very important to hold space for these very necessary conversations, because coming out has changed just as much as we have changed as a community. It was different in the 90s, it was different in 2000s, it was different in 2010s, and I'm very sure it's going to be completely different in the 2020s when we reach the end of the decade. The youth are in a much better place in terms of the communal support, having parents who went through their own coming out stories and had their own coming out situations and are openly queer and proud. It's a completely different environment. So thank you. To answer that final question, we did have one person ask about, I believe it's an identity question. Keely Quad asked, if you're bi, but you also have a trans boyfriend, are you not necessarily cis? They specified that their dad believes that they're non-binary. It's a little bit of a confusing question, but just to kind of establish some terminology before the question is answered, cisgender means it's just referring to your gender identity. You identify as the gender identity that you were assigned at birth. So if you were assigned male at birth and you still identify as male, then you would still be considered cisgender. If you no longer identify as male or female and you were assigned that at birth, then you would be non-binary, transgender, somewhere on the gender spectrum that is not cisgender. Sexuality is they're very intertwined, but they're also very different. But I'll leave the question to the panelists who might have a completely different perspective than I do.
I would like to answer this. Your partner or your friend's identity does not impact yours. So just because your partner, or sorry, your boyfriend is trans does not mean that you're possibly trans or non-binary. It can change your sexuality if you choose to identify as a different sexuality, but that it doesn't impact your gender. My partner is not binary, but is feminine, but that doesn't impact mine. I'm still gender fluid. I'm still transmasc. So yeah, just because anyone in your life, but just because they're trans or one different identity does not impact yours. So if you still identify as cisgender, then you're cisgender.
And for me personally, when I look at all the different labels and they're coming out and people are doing so much better creating new labels to try to incorporate every single aspect of sexuality, of gender, of anywhere on those spectrums. But I think what's the most important is, even if you choose not to have labels, that's a valid choice. You love the people that you love. You identify as the person you identify as. And I don't know that it's important to necessarily give those a label. And I don't think that you owe that to anybody. If it's important to you, go and look for it. But you don't owe it to anybody else.
I also think the only person who can define like what label you use is you. Like, it's like you have the sole responsibility, or like it's your choice. It's up to you to decide that, and nobody else. It's not really anybody else's business.
And nobody knows the inside of your head the way that you do. Nobody can tell you what you are or what you are not.
And who you're attracted to, and I think Maya was hitting on this, who you're attracted to does not determine your gender identity. Okay, there's no rule that says all women are attracted to men, right? Or it doesn't work that way.
I think what might be interesting here is that at the end of the question, it says, "My dad thinks I'm non-binary." And just as each of you spoke to, that's really a personal commitment. And I think that as opposed to just describing that or just kind of saying that out loud, my advice to even the parent or this individual would be maybe to do like a mutual learning experience. HRC has some really incredible resources and a glossary of terms where you all could read them together or even just kind of peruse MHA's website and look at what makes the most sense, what resonates, what feels appropriate at this time, because just as was spoken to before, that could change over time. But hey, today, these two feel like they make the most sense to me, could be one educational experience that educates both the parent and the individual in the circumstance.
And thank you. Thank everyone so very much. Thank you to my Mental Health America. Thank you to Naya specifically. You were a wonder. Thank you to Christina and Maya. And thank you to Ray and Siobhan. We will see you next year. Have a wonderful Halloween and a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Are we supposed to leave or are we staying on to chat?